A key member of the Philadelphia 76ers, a business-like walk for Tobias Harris entering the center in South Philadelphia tonight as the 76ers have business on their mind. No messing around, down 0-1 to the Atlanta Hawks in this best-of-7 game second-round series. The 76ers trying to split the set at the center before the series shifts to the ATL. How does that happen? From civilians to warm-up clothing, Tobias Harris. We get a little bit of both, column A and column B, as we welcome you into 7-6 Live Countdown tonight. I'm Brian Seltzer. Hello, Lauren Rosen, rebounding. We're not talking about crashing the boards, the operative word for the 76ers tonight.
No doubt about it. Love that seamless transition, the Tobias Harris cam from door to court. He's going to be big tonight, Celts, if the Sixers can get back on track. Of course, unhappy with their performance in Game 1, but the good news is the way that the team performed in the second half. I think for me, the key word is momentum. Take that second half, make it tonight's first half, and we'll be back in business.
We'll hear in a little bit from Doc Rivers and members of the 76ers about how they thought things went in Game 1 and where they hope to make some tweaks and adjustments going into Game 2. You're absolutely right, Lauren. The 76ers finished much, much better than they started. They somehow pulled to within 2 points with seconds remaining in regulation, nearly stealing a game in which they were down by 26 to Atlanta, which got off to an incredible start, especially in that first quarter and first half. So the Sixers were battling uphill the entire game. They got a great outing from Joel Embiid. Speaking of that, what do we know, Lauren, about Joel Embiid's status for tonight?
As was the case in Game 1, Celts Joel Embiid will be a game-time decision, still dealing with that right knee. But as we saw in Game 1, he dealt with it quite well. So some promising signs from the big fella who was pretty elite in Game 1.
No doubt about it. The first player in 76ers franchise history to score 39 points in a playoff game while playing fewer than 40 minutes. Incredible productivity from Joel Embiid. And of course, there was incredible productivity from the man from Atlanta, Trae Young, who went for 35 and 10, the first player in Hawks postseason history to go for 35 and 10 at that young of an age. We had two superstars or players with star power. Can we put Trae Young at superstar status yet? He's getting there if he's not there. Maybe not quite yet. Anyhow, point being, all league caliber players, they were at their best. And despite the 76ers not coming out on top, it was an entertaining game.
Absolutely entertaining. Like you said, Joel Embiid looking really good, not looking like someone who was dealing with a semi-serious injury there. He came out strong. He looked motivated. He looked like his old self. And especially in that fourth quarter, the Sixers had a 41-29 advantage in that fourth quarter alone, which was really impressive. Celts, it felt to me like one of those games where if there had just been a minute or two left, rather, the Sixers would have come out on top. But unfortunately, just slightly too little too late.
Ran out of time. Their trapping defense in the second half, so key to helping build some energy. Joel Embiid showing that he can, despite perhaps a right knee that is not 100%, can twist, turn, do all sorts of crazy stuff with the basketball, putting the 76ers in position to try and steal the game. Atlanta still came up with some big plays in crunch time. The Kevin Huerter pass that got the Hawks cross court. Bogdanovic with the big three-pointer. Obviously, Trae Young setting up John Collins for the alley-oop and one after Collins was able to draw the clear path foul on Joel Embiid. All key plays down the stretch. Yeah, this is that pass talking about from Kevin Huerter to get it to John Collins, and there was the clear path foul called on Joel Embiid. So a lot of important details down the stretch that ultimately factored into the 76ers losing the game by 4 points. But really, Lauren, it was what happened at the start of the game, the turnovers by the 76ers. Such uncharacteristic turnovers from this team put them in a hole, and they had to battle their way back.
No doubt, Celts taking better care of the basketball is certainly a theme we heard starting in post-game and into yesterday and today. It'll be interesting to see how well the Sixers can, in fact, take care early in this one because we know it's going to be a priority.
76ers gathered at the training complex in Camden yesterday for a late afternoon practice. We got to hear from Doc Rivers and his diagnosis about 24 hours after the game one loss.
You just got to be solid and more disciplined all game, and then you'll find out, where we're at in this series. So we clearly have to play better. We have to play better defense for sure. We have to not turn the ball over 19 times. A lot of the pain was self-inflicted for sure, and if that's for whatever reason it happened. I don't just lean on, well, we wasn't ready, because give them credit. They came and they punched us in the mouth, I thought. And so, we just got punched back.
The Hawks certainly did. As we take a look at how the game really tracked from the first half to the second half, the Hawks set a franchise record for points scored in the first half of a playoff game with 74. Blitzed the 76ers early on. Their three-point shooting was excellent. But yes, turnovers, 76ers committing self-inflicted wounds, leaving a handful of points at the free throw line. The Sixers got to the foul line 14 more times than Atlanta, but only made 4 more free throws. So I think there is a reason to look at that first half, Lauren, and say uncharacteristic of the 76ers, and then look at the second half when they outscored Atlanta 70-54 and say more like the Sixers.
No doubt about it. And whether rightfully or not, the Sixers were all pretty hard on themselves in terms of how they played defense in that first half, too. Obviously, the turnovers a huge issue, but this is a team that always wants to set the tone on defense and doesn't feel like they did in game one. So that's certainly another theme to look out for in game two. That defensive intensity that they're so proud of, look for them to bring it when tonight's game starts.
Another interesting thing that Doc Rivers said that stood out to me, Lauren, was that I think he used the phrase fool's gold when talking about how things went in the second half. And I honestly, I appreciate Doc Rivers being upfront and honest. I thought that was interesting to hear him say that he's not entirely sure what to make of that second half. And I buy that. I subscribe to that. I think for the Sixers, this can't just be, hey, we, fell down by that much. We were able to turn it on in the second half, so that automatically is going to carry over to the second game. I think this team really needs to embrace the mindset that they can't leave anything to chance, and from the get-go, come out and try to set the tone tonight.
No doubt about it, Seltz. And from the Hawks' perspective, they feel that they let up in the second half. So the same way the Sixers want to continue what they were able to do in the second half, the Hawks want to go back to what they were able to do in the first half on both ends. So there's certainly motivation from both sides to put together two halves of their good halves from game one.
We know Danny Green has been through ups and downs and quadruple bounces, 3 NBA championships, and an NCAA title. He spoke after practice yesterday. His perspective on trying to work past a game one defeat.
Not just with the players, but the coach staff had that experience as well. So just not to panic when one play happens, one possession happens. If a guy scores, it's not going to be 6-10. The score is 100 something for a reason. People are going to score. So if a guy scores, don't panic and say, "Oh, we need to change this, change that." We lose a game. It's the reason why it's a series. But just to come in and still be confident and let those guys know we're obviously we're not in the position we want to be, but we're okay. There's still a lot of basketball to be played. There's still a lot left. We can turn this thing around, and not to get rattled, not to panic by any means. We're still at home. We got to get home court advantage back somehow. So we got to win here tomorrow, and then hopefully get one. Not hopefully, but we got to get one on the road, and if not 2. We're going in every game trying to win every game, not just to steal one. We want to take 2, but we worry about tomorrow's game first. We have to win at home and get home court advantage back from there after that.
Another intriguing part of the dynamic here, Lauren, for the 76ers coming into tonight's game down 0-1 rather than 1-0. And let's say the Sixers won the first game, lost the second game, went to Atlanta, series tied 1-1. Tonight they're coming in down a game, and this is really for the first time this year the first dose of legitimate quote-unquote pressure perhaps the 76ers might feel. And I think we've talked about this a lot. They acquitted themselves so well during the regular season, how they played in clutch situations, pulling out games in fourth quarters, finding different ways to win depending on who was in, who was out. But I like Danny Green bringing that veteran, common perspective to a situation like this, where, the 76ers, there's a little bit of pressure.
Certainly a little bit of pressure, and this is, after all, what they were thirsting for down the stretch in the regular season. Of course, didn't intend to end up with their backs against the wall a little bit in this game 2 situation, but Joel Embiid said it himself. He wants to be tested, he wants to be pushed. He didn't feel he was getting enough of that in this regular season. Now's the time. He's tested, he's pushed. The rest of the team, of course, should Joel Embiid not be available tonight, I should add, he remains a game time decision, but the rest of the team in the same position. They are going to be tested. They're going to be pushed. Tonight, a great opportunity to respond.
For the Sixers, you would figure it starts with making sure Trae Young does not get loose. He has scored 30 points or more in each of his first 4 playoff road games, just the second player ever in NBA history to do that, along with Lou Alcindor, then of the Milwaukee Bucks. He came out, Lauren, and I thought he did such a great job setting the pace and tone for Atlanta with his passing. He had 5 assists in the first 8 minutes of play, and then the scoring started to happen. The deep bombs started to drop, and he is a very, very special player. The Sixers had more success on him in the second half, although he still found his spots at key moments to make an impact.
Certainly young, maybe a superstar, like you said, but his youth not showing one bit during this playoff run. It was interesting. Seltz, Taylor Rooks did an interview with Trae Young, I believe last season, maybe the season before, but definitely last season, asking about how long you can use youth as an excuse, or others will give your youth as an excuse. Trae Young said not for long, and certainly that's manifested in this season and this playoff run. He's been pretty magnificent.
His poise for the first time in the playoffs, definitely something worth noting. 76ers, of course, started the game with Danny Green, the primary defender, on Trae Young. They did some drop coverages. They mixed things up. Ben Simmons went on to Trae Young in the second half. We saw a little bit of Matisse Thybulle as well. So that's a primary subplot, without question, going into game 2. Ben Simmons weighed in on that after game 1.
Yeah, I mean, I probably will do that. I mean, I want to, so if the refs ain't going to call so many fouls, if I can be physical and be 6'10", then I'll be 6'10", but we'll see.
Part of the balancing act that Ben Simmons or anyone for the Sixers has to walk is how can you be physical and aggressive on someone like Trae Young while also not playing into the hands of whistles and exposing yourself to foul trouble? Because listen, Ben is a vital piece of the 76ers, and that is a risk that Doc Rivers and the staff have to calculate with a matchup like this.
And I suppose the good news in that situation is you do have so many capable defenders on your team if you're Doc Rivers. I'd imagine there'd be a little bit more variation maybe early in this one, but when you have guys like Ben, Matisse as a secondary option off the bench, Danny Green, who did hold his own certainly at times, that one. You have good options. That's all without discussing George Hill. And I know all those guys, Celts, we heard from actually all 3 of them, Ben, Danny, and Matisse. They are ready for a second shot at Trae Young. These are guys that really take pride in their craft and have another opportunity maybe for redemption in tonight's contest.
Enough about Atlanta's guy. Done with that. Move along. Next block. Let's talk about the 76ers guy, Joel Embiid, who a mere days after suffering a small tear in his right meniscus was back out on the floor, questionable going into game 1. No question about the type of performance he delivered. 39 points on 12 for 21 shooting, 14 for 15 from the free throw line, 9 rebounds, 3 blocks, and a couple of assists against the Atlanta Hawks. Did a great job of leading double teams. I thought that Joe was really excellent.
An unbelievable performance from a guy that was dealing with a little bit of uncertainty in the days leading up to game 1. Really good to see him get his feet under him early, see him playing aggressive and unafraid. He did look like the Joel Embiid that we all know and love, much to the relief, I think, of his teammates and of fans and coaches for sure.
His ability to come back after being on the shelf for however long, whether it's a couple days or a couple weeks, and deliver the way he does, it's something that he's done throughout his career, and I still marvel at how he does it. Take a look at that power dribble into the right-handed throwdown. Clint Capella at a little bit more than 6'10", not the physical type who I think can ultimately slow down Joel Embiid, as we're seeing right here. So how Atlanta figures to go about Joel? Do they mix things up, or do they say, you know what, maybe we try to just, we know Joel will get his, and we focus on some of the other members of the 76ers?
Joel did a good job against Clint Capella, who is a very solid player in this league. And we know that he relishes those big man matchups. Going to be really interesting to see the way that Joel handles now the chess match ahead, because Clint Capella figures to continue to be such a large part of this series. But like you said, Seltz, incredible to see him bounce back the way that he did. He's just so good when he comes back from injury. Something he talked about post game. I think we're going to hear that quote in just a second, but that always impresses me. He doesn't come in gingerly. He comes in a man on a mission, and he did do that in game one.
Joel Embiid is a big man with big goals, and he was not going to let an injury slow him from playing in the opener of the second round. Let's take a listen in post game from Sunday afternoon.
If you look at the history, every time I've had an injury, it always feels like I never miss a beat. Just because I go out there, I'm not thinking about, what happened or what may be going on. Maybe bothering, but, I'm just not thinking about it. I just want to, focus on giving my all. Just playing hard every single possession, just giving everything I got, and go from there. And, I put everything in the hands of God. Like I always say, whatever happens, happens. All I can do is control what I can. And it's by, taking care of my body. And, other than that, whatever happens, happens.
A very zen outlook from Joel Embiid about how to approach things. I respect it. Not easy. I think much easier said than done to try and eliminate any concerns you might have about your health and just go out there, lay it on the line.
And he's aligned with his vets. That sounded a lot like what Danny Green was hoping that the Sixers would do following game one. Not overreact, take things one game at a time, and try to win this thing one game at a time.
Lauren, perhaps because of the 76ers losing game one, a story that did not get as much attention as perhaps it would have under different circumstances, Matisse Thybulle scoring 10 points in a playoff game, 2 for 4 from outside the arc, a guy who has increasingly shot the ball in the playoffs. I like that. I think it's good for confidence building. Saw a couple go down against the Hawks, and he obviously on the defensive end of the floor is going to have to be a key part of what the 76ers do moving forward.
Well, we know what Matisse brings on defense, but offense is an area that he continues to put a lot of work into. Like you said, bench high 10 points in game one, a very efficient 4 for 6 from the field, and a lot of confidence, which I talked to Matisse about yesterday.
Hey, Matisse, your reputation is one such that we kind of knew what you were going to be bringing into this series defensively, but you also really held your own on the offensive end in game one. How can a performance like that for you personally inform your mindset as the series continues?
Really, I think that's something that like Doc and like my role has needed for like majority of the season. And I think the playoffs just heighten everything, magnifies things. So like teams are going to like give up a little bit and they're going to give up a little bit more. And so they can focus on other things. So with me, it's like leaving me on the 3-point line, and like, whether it's been conversations with like friends, mentors, or coaches, just trying to help me with my confidence, I think it's done a lot in terms of allowing me to succeed in those situations. And then that just helps carry over into what I already know I can do defensively.
Doc said after game one that of any Sixer, you've probably put up the most shots in the last 5 days. And while I know it's not a competition, can you tell us a little bit more about that extra work you're putting in and why it's important for you to be doing it right now?
I mean, it just goes back to the confidence thing. Like when you know you put in the work, when you've done the reps, like you have something that you can fall back on. And for me, it was just like get up as many shots as possible without trying to take away from, like, just without fatiguing myself too much so I can show up and still perform. And yeah, I think it helps a little bit, but I mean, that's one game and we're down one game. So it's going to be a lot more. It's going to take a lot more than just that.
Matisse, when you think about the second half of game one, what can you guys do as a group to sort of transfer that second half that was really strong on both ends into game two and have that sort of be what informs your next performance as opposed to what went on in the first half?
I mean, it's not that complicated. Like we proved that we know what to do, we know how to do it, and it's just showing up and doing it from the jump. Like it's really easy to take a breath after you win a series, but it's in all reality is that's the time to really like hunker down and like dig in even deeper. And I think the first half just showed a little bit of that, and the second half was just showing what we're really here to do, what we're really about.
Matisse really confident too that the team can bring that momentum into game two. I love the way that all of the Sixers have echoed what Danny Green said his ambition was yesterday. Not get too high, not get too low, embrace what they know how to do and continue to do it for a full 48 minutes. Cool to hear that Matisse's confidence is continuing to rise. That's only going to be helpful for the Sixers as this run continues.
Great insights, Lauren, from Matisse. Thank you, as always, for that segment. We also get great insights from our X and O's man, Jay Crafton, former assistant with the Delaware Blue Coats. He is now the head coach at University of Maryland Eastern Shore. He takes us, as usual, inside the matchup.
This is Jay Crafton, and it's time to go inside the matchup. All right? Hey, game one, an exciting game. If you saw the fourth quarter, you know that the Sixers came out with a lot of passion, intense ball pressure, outscored the Hawks 41-29. They forced 6 turnovers in that quarter, which really got them going in transition, getting some easy baskets and also some drives that gave them a chance to get to the free throw line and then set up some full court pressure defense. They put the Hawks in position to turn the basketball over and put Trae in position to have to get rid of the basketball. I like when they started to show some double teams, guard on guard double teams, and then hard hedges and doubles, even with the 5 with Joel. We talked a lot about that coming into the first game, and they did that intentionally in the last 7-8 minutes of the fourth quarter, and that gave the Sixers a chance to really get back into the game. We came into game one talking a lot about Trae Young, and I think the fans see why, all right? He comes out there, he gets 35 points, he knocks down 4 threes, and he also was 9 for 9 from the free throw line. So what's that telling you? That's telling you he's letting it go from deep, and the 9 free throws is also telling you that he's getting in the lane. So all the things that we were concerned about, those things happened. The fourth quarter defense was intentional in terms of getting into him and pressuring and pushing him away from the basket. Expect to see the Sixers come out in the first half and try to apply that same type of pressure and show 2, recover, trap him, try to put some other guys in position to make some plays. Hopefully that leads to some increased turnovers and the Sixers will be able to get out in transition, get the home crowd going and get everybody excited and make some great plays at the basket. This is Jay Crafton. You just went inside the matchup.
Always the wiser for hearing from Jay Crafton on Inside the Matchup. It is game 2 tonight. 76ers looking to level this best of 7 second-round series before heading down to Atlanta. Time for our keys to tonight's game. 76ers are going to get back on track on their home floor. Lauren Rosen, your key to tonight's game is...
Well, Seltz, you alluded to my key to the game earlier on. The Sixers, Doc Rivers, everybody that's spoken to media over the last 48 hours or so has talked about the fact that Atlanta threw the first punch. The Sixers a little bit slow to punch back. So I want the Sixers to start from the top, throw the first punch, make that first move from the tip, and they should be in good shape because historically during the regular season, when the Sixers got out to a strong first quarter, they were able to maintain. They did the same in round 1 against the Wizards. It's all about the start for me tonight.
Very sensible, very accurate. Will be hard to dispute. Great key number 1. Mine for tonight's miscues and makes. Miscues and makes. 2 things that foiled the 76ers in game 1. 19 turnovers. We've heard that number infused into our brains. Leaving 11 points on the free throw line and a 4-point loss. We don't want to do that. Miscues, makes. Take the miscues away and make the makes. I don't know where I was going with that. I tried.
Hey, you called my key sensible. I think those were 2 very sensible keys to the game. I like that word. I don't I don't want my keys to get too high or too low. Let's keep it all sensible.
Keys to the game for game 2 as the 76ers look to right the ship. Speaking about what's right in the world, Joel Embiid, he is a fantastic basketball player. He is also a fantastic citizen of this fair city of Philadelphia. He is in the running for the NBA Community Assist Award. And you, yes, you, now through June 19th, can take part in getting him the win. He is the MVP'd on and off the court. You got to use 2 hashtags. You can use 2 hashtags. You can also tag Joe, use the hashtag on Twitter, and help Joel Embiid win. Of course, Lauren, he made that incredibly generous $100,000 donation to try and combat homelessness and housing needs in the Philadelphia area.
Yeah, and Joel, of course, making an impact not only in the city of Philadelphia, but around the world in his home country of Cameroon, consistently throughout his NBA career. This is a well-deserved honor as a finalist for Joel. And again, make sure you write his name, tag him, hashtag him along with the hashtag NBA Community Assist, I'm sorry, on Twitter. Retweets count as votes. There's also a link. You can find it on my Twitter, on Celtics Twitter, on my Instagram. We are going hard for Joel to be that MVP'd on and off the court.
Even simpler, because there's a lot there. Go to Sixers.com. There's an article that explains it all. Just help Joel Embiid. I'm going to pull a fast one on Coletti and Trevor. You guys don't need to run the graphic for this. We'll just tell you that tomorrow, because it's the day after a playoff game, a new episode of Fanatic About the Playoffs drops on the 76ers Podcast Network. Follow by searching 76ers Podcast wherever you get your pods. And because we're up against it, why don't we leave you with a sampling of a brand new, incredible collaboration between the Sixers and Philadelphia's own Tierra Whack. Big shout out to Tierra Whack, but also our fine producer, editor, Maggie Zerby, for bringing this all together. Ryan Coletti was hugely involved as well. So we'll leave you with this and call it a show, and hope we're talking about a dub before Game 3 on Friday.
Thanks, Phelps.
Ain't nothing but a rebound. Time I call on you. Stay down, just trust the process. Been making lots of progress. Championship, we coming